All right, here's a really short video, I promise. This is the same as my last video. This is the 1-inch sight glasses. I boosted up the water level even higher to see if I could get anything to show up in here. So the answer is no. There's just a little condensate here, which again is from the steam that condenses on the inside of these pipes and these fittings. Okay, the steam is moving up there pretty quick. You can see that it sort of fights with the condensate. It's pushing the condensate up. It's not allowing the condensate to run down, but I think it's a little bit of a circulatory effect where like it goes up, then sort of back down, then it goes up and sort of back down. But anyway, I certainly wouldn't call this wet steam, except for the fact that I call all steam created in a residential boiler wet steam. But I think when people think of wet steam, they're thinking of water droplets in the steam, right? And it's unfortunate because in steam terminology, wet steam just means saturated steam or steam that's at roughly 212 degrees that will condense, rapidly upon cooling, as opposed to what I think would be really dry steam, which is superheated steam, above, possibly considerably above 212 degrees, that has no liquid water in it whatsoever because it's been, superheated. But yeah, I think all the steam that this boiler has ever made, and any of our residential boilers has ever made, is wet steam. Okay, so I don't know. In my opinion, we shouldn't use the term wet steam. We should call it carryover, and that's about it. If you didn't have these glass pipes here, you wouldn't be able to even know the quality of the steam unless you saw the gauge glass level drop, right? Because that would be a sign that it's blowing or shooting liquid water up into the piping. That's definitely not happening here. Here's my pressure with my current situation. It's around 10 inches of water column, which is less than 1/2 of a psi. And then here is my water level, which is way up there. Before it started boiling, it was about 1/2 inch from the top of the glass, and now it's varying between 3/4 and 1.25 inches, something like that. So maybe I'll add some more water in there just to see what happens when the water that's boiling actually is, right below this level. See if I can get it to carry over. But again, 1 inch, a single, this one's closed, right? So there's a single 1-inch supply, 1 inch, tiny little area of 1.25 inches here, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and then this part is 1.25 inches, leading to here, where all we see is the condensate running down from the pipe. You can't avoid that. Every header has this moisture in it due to condensation on the inside of the pipe. All right, so there you go. 3 minutes and 55 seconds. Bye. Okay, I'm back. I dumped another, I don't know, 1/2 gallon or gallon of distilled water into my boiler, and we can see that the water is right up to the top of the glass, right? So I'm going to turn it back on, and this side's closed. 1-inch supply with the water all the way up to the top. We're going to see if we can see, I don't know. Let's see, what level is it? I think the water level is almost to where that first bushing is down there, that 3-inch bushing. It may be just a hair below it, maybe 1 inch below it or even less. I don't know. I could take the glass off and put a dipstick down there and see, but it's pretty high. I hope that at the conclusion of this video, with my water level all the way up at the top of the gauge glass over there, and with a single 1-inch pipe supplying all the steam to my admittedly small system at around 200 EDR, something like that. I hope we can agree that steam is super, super flexible. It can go through a constriction like this 1-inch constriction here and still feed the whole system just fine. I'm sure not gonna tell people to, you know, repipe their boiler. I'll tell them when they replace their boiler, they should make sure to find someone who can actually pipe it correctly. Here's the steam starting to go up, and there's a decent amount of condensate that forms because the pipe is slightly cooled off. It's just a few minutes after the first part of this video. So we're already up, bouncing around up here. Now the reason it's bouncing so much is because the water level now is at or above my tapping for my pressure controls and this pressure gauge. So that's why it bounces more when the water level goes really high, okay? But anyway, you can see roughly where the pressure is. Now if it starts, I think if the water comes up and starts interfering, there it goes, a little bit. If the water starts interfering with the steam, we'll see the pressure continue to bounce higher. And we are seeing it go up to 15 now. And I think what happens when it starts to surge is, and I've seen this before when my boiler was surging when I had contaminants in it, is the water there starts to resist the steam, right? And yeah, that's gonna lead to some additional resistance and some additional pressure. But again, I don't consider it really an inefficiency because the steam gets through. We're gonna maybe see a little water hammer kind of activity here if the steam pushes and smashes. This is perhaps the so-called the mythical slug of water that we always hear about. That to me, I mean, if you have a slug of water, you have carryover. So I would just call that carryover. But this is similar to that in that when the water is so high, if it randomly happens to splash some water up here and it gets caught in the steam, there it goes. See that? We saw it shoot up there. But the steam blasts its way through there. No BTUs are lost in the making of this video. The fire is heating the boiler. It's heating the boiler water. It's creating the steam. And if the steam generation gets delayed slightly and results in a higher pressure for a moment, that steam gets released. It's not like that heat is lost. So I don't see this as an efficiency issue at all. I see it as, you know, right now this is just fine. Like nobody, I don't think, would see what we're seeing here. An occasional, this is what maybe Jamie was talking about on the Heating Help Forum when he said a burp of water, right? This to me is like, you could call it a burp of water. It's like a chunk of water gets caught up in the steam briefly. But it's not like it gets carried, you know, through the whole system, up, down, around, and all the way through and hurts your radiators. It's just water. There's water all throughout the steam system. All the condensate that's coming down at the far end of my main is in my main. There's water in the main when the steam is running. So, well, I lost my point now, but that's that's all the facts I can tell you is with 1 inch and the water level ridiculously crazy high, there's still no carryover. We saw an occasional blip of water here. That was it. So there you have it. Another 5 minutes down. Thank you. All right, I got one more thing to show you. So my cycle guard just kicked in and allowed the pressure to go back down again, but that reminded me of something. I didn't show you what happens when I open this up. I want to show you what happens to the pressure, and then maybe I'll show you a related a related behavior that I find kind of interesting. So the boiler just kicked back on again, and the steam is starting to increase to, you know, what the full production is, and it's blowing the condensate up, but no carryover. Okay, this is just the condensate that's in the pipe sitting here. And here's our pressure where we saw it before, right? So now I'm gonna open the 2-inch valve slowly, and you can see what the pressure is like when the 2-inch valve is open. That's gonna be one thing to show you. So I'm starting to open it slowly. We're approaching halfway open. I'll sit here at about halfway open for a bit. There's where it's at. And I'm coming to fully open now. And we're fully open. And again, this bouncing is because of the extremely high water level that I'm running right now. Yesterday, when I was in the video from yesterday, it goes down basically to 0 or 1 when the water's not interfering. And then, so there's where most of the steam is going through. There's still some steam coming through here, and it's interesting, when I open this, it seems like there's more condensate that forms here, and that may be because it's complex, but when the steam's flowing really fast through here, the pressure gets reduced, and that could make the steam more likely to be formed, if I'm getting this correct. When I open this up, I think the pressure in here gets gets higher because it's not flowing through as fast, and that's allowing more liquid water to exist in here. But so now I'll close this one again, and I'll show you as I'm closing it. You can see what happens to this condensate over here. There, it starts to dissipate, so I'm just getting it there. It's fully closed. It gets, number one, it doesn't collect here because it gets blown up, but I also think it's getting re-vaporized because I never see the water come up and over the top. It might be bouncing around up here. But again, it's all condensate. You know, there's going to be condensate in these pipes, and the condensate doesn't mess around with the steam flowing anywhere. And then finally, one more thing I'll show you. I'm coming over here. This is the end of my main, and this is my drop or drip down to my wet return down here. And I have this glass, just the normal water level, water line is right about here. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is full of water right now. So the water line is somewhere up here. And the reason that happens is, sorry about all the movement, but when this pressure is higher, due to this constriction, right? I got to be really careful to how to say this, but when this pressure is higher, where the pressure is only higher in the boiler, that will lead to the water level rising at the far end. But that never happens under normal piping, right? Even when this was 1.25 inches, the pressure never went up in the boiler. Well, it went up just an inch or so, or a couple inches. But I want to make it clear, I did some tests in the past where I proved that the equalizer doesn't do anything to equalize any pressure, and I put this valve here, which doesn't do anything because the equalizer, it doesn't equalize anything, okay? And I showed that even when I ran this thing up to 5 to 10 psi, the water level over here never budged, okay? Well, this does not contradict that. What it tells us is this is the same thing that happened in that video. I closed down the feed, and as I did that, you could see the water level go up over there. That's what we're seeing here. This additional 10 inches of pressure results, I don't think, in exactly 10 inches of water level change over there, but it puts some level of water level change at the far end. And so now we can watch what happens. Try to hold this steady. I'm going to now open my 2-inch feed to allow my system pressure in the boiler now, not this, I shouldn't say system pressure, but the boiler pressure to drop. So I've just dropped it just a little bit, and we see the water level now. And if I look down at the gauge, it's like at 8 inches. And if I open it a little more, we can see it drop more, and it's currently at 5 inches. If I drop it a little more, it's getting almost fully open now, and the pressure's at like 3 inches. We can see the water there. And when I have it fully open and the pressure is around bouncing between like 2 and 3 inches, we can see the water level. I don't know if we can see it down there or not, but we know that it's right about there at the bottom. So kind of interesting. If you constrict the pressure here, then you do result in a higher pressure in the boiler that does tend to push the water out, but only because of this high constriction here. All right. Thanks again. I'm really done this time.